Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews, and this is my review for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episodes 1 through 5. So I'm no longer doing weekly reviews as I have done in years past, so I'm doing it in chunks. I'm doing the first half of the season now, and then I will do the second half of the season after that is completed. So spoiler warning, of course, applies if you have not seen up through episode 5 of season 5 of Lower Decks, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you should know that already, but there you go. So what I'm going to do here is give an overview of my thoughts of the first 5 episodes, first half of the season overall, and then I am going to go through each episode individually to give my review. The first 4 episodes, I already have written reviews up on my Facebook page, so you should follow me on Facebook. I didn't write one for episode 5 because I knew I was going to do this, and I could just talk about it here. But you can go and read those as well. I think what I'm going to say here is going to be very similar to what I wrote, at least for episodes 1 through 4. One other quick note. A little bit of a crossover here with my live chat with wine, as I do have some wine I will be sipping on. This is Four Vines. It's the suffrage wine, celebrating women's suffrage. I don't know why I would feel like I need to drink this wine in this particular point of time in this country, but I do, and there we go. It's a Pinot Noir, by the way. But I am not Alyssa Jean, the Pinot Queen, because this is not one of my live chats. This is a review for Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 5, Episodes 1 through 5. Let me take a sip, and then we'll get started. So, the first half of the season, I can describe in one word, and if you've watched my channel before, you may have heard me use this word before. And the one word is meh. If you want to count that as a word, but it's been a very mediocre first half of the season. In fact, I would say this is the most mediocre first half of a Lower Decks season since season 2. Season 2, the first half of it was very mediocre. Season 1, I discovered upon my rewatch that I did last year that I think the first half of season 1 is actively bad. Like, I didn't think it when I first saw it, but compared to what Lower Decks would become later, the first half of season 1 is actually not very good at all. The first half of season 2 is better. I would describe it as mediocre, although it does have that Mugato episode, which I would describe as actively bad. I would say season 2, that first half is mediocre. Season 3 has 2 episodes in the first half of it that made my top 25. And one of them is The Least Dangerous Game, which I think not as many people like that one as much as I do, but I will never get over the thanks for the mimosas. So I love The Least Dangerous Game, gave it a 9 out of 10 rating, and it is in my top 25 of all of modern Trek. And then episode 5 of season 3 is Reflections, an excellent Rutherford character episode. So good. I gave it, upgraded it to a 9.5 out of 10. And also is in my top 25 of all of modern Trek. Season 4, Tuvix, I believe I gave an 8.5 or a 9 and didn't quite make my top 25. But it was in my honorable mentions. So I might have given it a 9. I don't remember. Tuvix I really like, but episode 5, In Pathological Fallacies, did make my top 25, and I did give it a 9 out of 10. That's the one with the Betazoid women and focusing on Tallinn. I love that episode. That was episode 5 of last year. So the previous 2 seasons, seasons 3 and 4, each had a couple episodes in that first half that I gave a 9 out of 10 to that I really, really loved. This one was like, didn't have any. I didn't give a 9 out of 10, and you'll see I will go through my ratings out of 10 for each of the episodes as I go through them. I did not give a 9 out of 10 to any of them. So this is the most mediocre first half of a season since season 2. The closest one is episode 4. Episode 4 had the best A plot, but unfortunately, it also has the worst B plot, which keeps it under that 9 out of 10 range. And I will get more into those details once I get to episode 4. But that's the closest one to a really strong Lower Decks episode that they've had in the first half of the season. But unfortunately, the B plot does drag it down. So I don't want to say, I'm tempted to say that if it keeps going through the whole season with this quality, then I will always be sad that Lower Decks is leaving, no matter what. And I still am in a little bit of denial that it is being canceled. But if the entire season is this quality, I could see myself feeling like, well, it's probably for the best that it went when it was before it gets too bad, since the quality had gone downhill. However, I don't think necessarily that the second half of the season is going to be as mediocre as the first half. They are setting up for something really interesting with these quantum fissures. We did get to explore that a little bit in the first episode, which I'll get to in a couple minutes. I really did actually like that aspect of the first episode. So we explored that a little bit, and then we've got little hints dropped here and there that we are building up to some sort of mystery about the quantum fissures. It's similar to what they did in season 4 with all those ships disappearing, but I feel like they're actually doing a better job of being a little more subtle about their setup and not beating us beat over the head with their setup for this overall story arc that they're building toward. So I like that. So I do actually have a lot of positive hope and feelings for the second half of the season. I did notice. So IMDb has the episode titles up, so I don't want to spoil all of them. There's like 3 of them that I'm like, interesting episode title. But episode 9 is called Fissure Quest, so that tells you right there that they are going to follow through on this setup with the fissures, the quantum fissures, and I would imagine episodes 9 and 10 will probably be a 2-parter that will address that. Episode 9 obviously does because it's called Fissure Quest. So I still have hope for the second half that it will be better. And again, I want to stress that this is not bad. This is not like bad like I think the first half of season 1 is bad. It's mediocre. With that said, let me go through each of the first 5 episodes and give you my review of them. Okay, let's get started with season 5, episode 1, Dos Ceritos. So I'll start with the Dos Ceritos storyline and then talk about the Orion of it all. So this was not quite as good as I was hoping it would be when I saw the trailer and we saw the scene where they meet their parallel universe selves. But I still quite enjoyed it. It wasn't laugh out loud hilarious like I was hoping it would be, but it did have its moments, did have its meta commentary. The ransoms were arguing over which one is the prime universe, which I believe Emperor Giorgio also made a comment in one of the Discovery episodes too. We're the prime universe. Like, why does our characters get to call themselves the prime universe? From your perspective, you are. So I thought that was nice. Also, the ransoms were arguing over they were arguing with each other and calling each other handsome and gorgeous and a hunk and all those things. That was good as well. A nice bit of meta commentary with Captain Becky Freeman saying, "No interpersonal conflicts allowed." That's a deep cut for you Star Trek fans who know about Gene Roddenberry's insistence that there were not allowed any interpersonal conflicts on the Enterprise D when Next Generation came out, which hindered the writers quite a bit. And thankfully, they were able to move past that once he was gone. There was no longer a thing. But I really enjoy little things like that, little Easter eggs that they slip in there. Um, some good character beats as well. We're setting up a season long arc with Boimler, and that was satisfying to see since Boimler didn't really have a season long arc in season four. He just did the Mark Twain thing, but that wasn't really like a deep dive into the character like we had in season three. So it seems like we're going back to that. And and based on the first five episodes, yes, we do. It does continue. So uh, Boimler, of course, seeing what he could be in this alternate universe, and how do I get that confidence? How do I get to be that person? So that is interesting. The Rutherford stuff is interesting. How he could have possibly reacted differently to Tendi leaving the ship. In our universe, he's just working himself to death, so he doesn't have to think about Tendi not being there. So he's just working all the time. Um, and in this universe, he literally like erased his own memory of it and made himself more of a cyborg. So that was interesting. Although I'm still going to make the case that the Orion storyline is completely unnecessary, but I'll get to that in a minute. This is probably the most necessary. This is probably the most worthwhile thing about the whole Orion stuff is how it affects Rutherford. Um, Now it also is interesting to see Mariner getting a peek at what she could be like if she were to take Starfleet seriously, and wasn't very good. So it kind of made me think at the time that it's just going to make Mariner double down on who she is. But we see in later episodes this is not the case. That there is probably, you know, a happy medium. Like there is probably a way for her to advance in Starfleet and not turn into that what Becky Freeman turned into. Um, so I did overall enjoy this. It's a little silly the body switch thing. The switching the Mariners at the end. I didn't mind that necessarily, but what I was having trouble with is why then was our Mariner pretending to be Becky Freeman when she should have just said, hey, look at me, I'm from the wrong universe. She totally switched bodies with me. We need to go get them. Like, why did she not do that? So the episode could happen. So that was a little bit of a cheat, I thought, that they did that. But overall, I still enjoyed this storyline. Maybe not as much as I was hoping I would, based off of the trailer. But this does set up for future storylines involving the quantum fissures. So I'm interested in that. Now, on to the Tendi stuff. Every season, it seems like Lower Decks ends with a storyline that is then quickly wrapped up in the following episode, and it makes you wonder what the whole point of it was. And now that I've seen the first five, and Tenny's just back on the Cerritos and everything's back to normal, it does make me wonder what the whole point of it was. Like, I don't know why we had to do this. It was fine. There's some good jokes in here too. The Orions in this episode make fun of their uniforms and like our uniforms look ridiculous. The fact that they even have the Orions for from the animated series, that's pretty awesome. So I do love that kind of thing, but I still don't know that the storyline was necessary, and especially if it's not necessary in episode two. Like, I feel like it had a clear ending at the end of episode one, and that should have been the end of it. But they were like, no, let's just drag the storyline on for no particular reason. So, but that's more of an episode two thing. So let me go ahead and move on over to talking about episode two. I set myself up for a nice little segue into episode two, and then remembered that I did not give my rating for episode one. So let me take care of that first. So my rating out of 10 for season five, episode one, Dos Cerritos, is an 8. Solid, not laugh out loud hilarious, not blowing me away. Now I can take that segue over to episode two, and I will start by talking about the Orion stuff. So episode 2 is called Shades of Green, which just makes me think of Shades of Gray. So when I first saw that title, I was like, are we just going to see Tindy unconscious the whole time, like having flashbacks of all her different great times that she had with the Cerritos crew? Thankfully, that's not what it was. Shades of Grey, of course, the horrible, horrible flashback episode in season 2 of The Next Generation. So, okay, so into the Orion stuff. So another stupid fucking racing storyline. Like we're gonna have a race. Like we already did that in Prodigy season 2, and by far my least favorite episode in Prodigy season 2, and in competition for my least favorite episode of all of Prodigy was the one where they did the stupid. We're gonna do pod racing. Like, just stop it, God's. I hate this trope so much. I've hated it every time Star Trek has done it. There was a crappy Voyager episode where they did it too. Though I will say I was probably even less bothered by the racing of it all than I was. They did this stupid thing that shows do where like everything could just be resolved in a millisecond if the characters just freaking talk to each other. Like, why did Tindy wait so long to just tell her sister she knew she was pregnant so that they could have all those stupid gags? That's why she waited so long. It's very sitcom-y. It's not my type of thing at all. Like, just fucking ask her or just tell her that you know she's pregnant. Instead, they have all these stupid gags where she gets her to lay down and all that. And I didn't find it even the slightest bit funny. Stone face the whole time. Like, I did not find any of that stuff even remotely funny. Because I've seen this kind of bullshit before. Just communicate. If you communicate, then the problem is resolved. So that was really annoying. So that actually bothered me even more than the racing bullshit. So I do have to give this episode credit, though, for after all these years having a character correct the pronunciation of Orion. It's pronounced Orion. Like, okay, big kudos for that. I did love that they were finally able to do that because the writer said the animated series didn't really understand that it was supposed to be pronounced Orion. And on a side note, and I also wrote this in my written review, the animated series vastly overrated. It's really not that good at all. Like, there's nothing good in the animated series. The episodes that people think are good, I think are either mediocre or sometimes, in some cases, bad. So it's not that great. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I do think that the Tindy pirate thing went on for one episode too long. Okay, sure, you're gonna do the thing. We're gonna have a cliffhanger, and then you're gonna quickly resolve it in the next season. You might as well just quickly resolve it in the next season. Like, it felt really dragged out. Felt like we didn't need this. Just get her back on the Cerritos. That's where she belongs. And then in the future episodes, which I'll talk about, she's on the Cerritos, and it's as if she never left, making this whole storyline a waste of time. Now, onto the Mariner Boimler storyline. Again, I'll use my favorite word, which if you even want to count it as a word, but meh. This just seemed like a pretty bland rehash of previous Mariner and Boimler storylines. I will say, like, the direction that they took Boimler, trying to emulate his counterpart from the parallel universe. As I mentioned previously, I do like this, that they're setting up for this season-long arc. I like that he starts growing the beard here, and we'll see it continually grow with each passing episode. I do like that. There was a C plot with Rutherford and Tielan, which was pretty sweet. I'm glad they had Tielan in this episode. More Tielan. I'll get to an episode in a few minutes that doesn't have Tielan in it, and they had too many episodes in season 4 without Tielan. We got more Tielan, even though this was the C plot. I did really like that. So overall, I just felt this episode was just a big pile of meh, and just mediocre to even bad um, portions of this episode. So my rating out of 10, I'm not going to forget it this time. My rating out of 10 for Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 5, Episode 2, Shades of Green, is a mere 6. One of the lowest ratings that you'll ever see me give a Lower Decks episode from Season 3 onward. I don't give below a 6 very often. There is a stupid peanut hamper episode in Season 3, but otherwise, 6 or lower is pretty rare. So I was just kind of this is definitely my least favorite episode of the season thus far. And now I have actually given my rating, so I can move on to episode 3. Okay, now getting into it, season 5, episode 3, The Best Exotic Nanite Hotel. So I did really enjoy the Jariner stuff. So actually kind of like episode 4, which I alluded to earlier, I think this episode has a really good A plot and a not so great B plot, although I think that's more pronounced in episode 4, as I think the A plot is even better and the B plot is even worse. But it's similar kind of dynamic here where I do really enjoy the Jariner stuff. I like that they finally closed the loop on that storyline. Like they left it hanging in season 3, and they kind of make fun of themselves a little bit here. I think there's kind of a meta commentary about how they left it hanging and how they have Jennifer just come in and pretend like nothing had ever happened. I actually thought that was brilliant, the way they did it that way. So we in the audience are sitting there going, "What the fuck? Didn't they break up? Didn't they?" That was 2 seasons ago. I don't remember. I think they broke up. And I love that they really play off the fact that we never actually saw Mariner break up with her on screen. So they're really playing off of that she actually didn't break up with her, and they use this as a great opportunity for some Mariner character exploration where she never is able to really confront her problems. This goes all the way back to season 1 at Counterpoint. She still never really confronted another person. She just kind of worked it out in the holodeck. So she's not good at direct confrontation with the person when she has a problem with them. So it was kind of a really nice way of playing that out and Mariner getting some development here. So did really enjoy this quite a bit. Now, as far as the whole Nanite thing, I mean, it was really just kind of a means to get Mariner and Jennifer fighting, get that conflict going, and getting that plot moving along. And that's just typical of Star Trek, especially in the Next Generation era, where 2 characters are having some kind of conflict post Roddenberry, so we can have interpersonal conflict now. 2 characters are having some kind of conflict. Not always 2 main characters. Oftentimes it could be a love interest of the week for one of the characters or something like that. But 2 characters having some sort of conflict, and we have some kind of throwaway plot that is designed solely just to bring them together. And help them resolve their conflict. And that's all I saw the Nanite thing as, although we did get the little reference there to the quantum fissure with the little micro universe, which I actually found that interesting, and it just shows that there's all kinds of different universes. So they're reminding us that is a thing, that is something that we're going to build toward without beating us over the head, like I had said earlier in this video, like they did in season 4. Now the Boimler stuff, okay, I will admit it just kind of fit a little bit into his overall season arc, as he has this journey of seeing where he fits and how he can be that person. But this is like him reaffirming his commitment to Starfleet, to try to find more ways to be like his alternate universe counterpart. Yeah, I mean, I'll give it that, but let me just cut to what I really hated about this episode. And that's when Jet he's dragged into the shuttle bay for really no reason. Like there's no way that the medics would be happen to be going through that shuttle bay unless he just got back from the mission. But then that's impossible because Ransom has been elsewhere and Ransom was getting ready, so he didn't just come back from the mission. It made no sense that he would be just carted through through the shuttle bay. It was just out of complete nowhere. It was complete plot contrivance. And I know it's Lower Decks, it's animated, it's a comedy, but I'm only allowed to give it so much slack. I'm only allowed to suspend so much disbelief. And this thing here with Jet just coming out of complete nowhere and happened to be taken through the shuttle bay for absolutely no reason, like that was just, I could not buy that. It was way too plot convenient-y. And then when did this happen? Like I don't I don't get that. Like because it does kind of make it sound like it just happened just now. But if you follow what Ransom was doing, it does not seem that way at all. And I think another a big issue I have with this is that this idea that Ransom would intentionally use ensigns as the canary in the coal mine. That did provide with some mild humor with Boimler constantly making the canary references and Billups and Ransom not getting it. That was slightly funny. But the whole thing about Ransom using ensigns or young officers, lieutenant, junior grades, what have you, as canaries in the coal mine and not giving a shit about them, 1,000,000% goes against 4 seasons of character development for Ransom. Sure, Ransom is egotistical. He thinks very highly of himself. He likes to work out, but he is been shown again and again as a very kind and caring and empathetic commander, and he wants to take care of his crew. He's been shown that way many, many times, despite sort of the vanity that he has, which makes him an interesting character. So this idea that he would intentionally just use ensigns for his own means is bullshit. And I think maybe we are to believe that Jet is wrong and that's not what Ransom is doing. But the way that they should even make us think that that's a possibility is going against 4 seasons of character development. So I totally did not care for this at all. So my overall rating for this episode, so I'm taking into account like the wonderful Mariner storyline that I really enjoyed and the stupid fucking Boimler sitcom gag. It is a total of a 7.5 out of 10. So now let's move on to episode 4. Okay, now we move on to season 5, episode 4, A Farewell to Farms. So this had what is easily my favorite storyline of season 5 thus far. If the B plot didn't totally suck, then I would have given this my one and only 9 out of 10 for the first half of the season. I'll get to my rating a little bit later, but I did really enjoy the return of Ma. I didn't really remember what that dude's name is, but it's Ma from Wage Douche originally, and then he and Mariner finally got to meet. It was the first time that he actually met one of our Lower Decks characters at the end of last season. And I really enjoyed that storyline. I really enjoyed that connection that the two characters made coming from completely 2 different worlds. And I like how Ma'a's very grumpy about the whole thing. And he's like, stupid humans. And like, I kept trying to ignore them. And finally has to accept that, yeah, you have a soft spot for Mariner. Come on, just admit it. And I love how Mariner is relentless in getting that out of him. So I really enjoyed the connection between these 2 characters. this was very much kind of a wage douche light episode too from the beginning. Before I get into that, really into that connection between Mariner and Ma'a, where it's very much from Ma'a's perspective. We even get a different credit sequence that is also from Ma'a's perspective. Very much at the beginning, it reminded me of the TNG episode Family, because they're in this kind of winery type of place with a character's brother, but. Not at all the same dynamics in that episode, but did remind me of that. And so I did enjoy that, and I like it. And that a lot of the episode is framed in Ma'a's perspective, and then we get Mariner and Boimler coming in a bit later. Uh, yeah. Now, overall, I did really enjoy the Mariner and Boimler stuff with the Klingons. My one maybe small critique is that um, I don't know why Mariner had to lie to Ma'a and not just say up front, like, hey, so we have this mission. This will help both of us, rather than pretending like she was there just for him when that wasn't the case, or she had her own motives as well. I felt like that was a little bit deceptive and maybe takes away from their bond just slightly, but not enough to really bother me that much. But I did have a little bit of a critique with that. As for Boimler, loving the mustache. This is the first episode where we get the mustache that'll be built upon a little bit in the next episode. I'm sure that it'll just keep getting built upon in each episode. I love that Mariner and Boimler are just kind of unabashedly like not taking the bullshit from any of the Klingons. Like I feel like in the past, like in Star Trek, it's always like, oh, we've got to respect their culture, and they're like, no, if you're an asshole, you're an asshole. Fuck your culture. Like assholes are assholes. That I love that Mariner and Boimler were not afraid to just talk back to the Klingon asshole dude. Which is especially brazen considering that they're supposed to be these big tough Klingons you're supposed to be afraid of, and they weren't afraid of them. They're like, no. And then my favorite line is when that asshole dude, I forget his name, but he says, "This weakling killed my brother," and Mariner's like, "A weakling killed your brother? Your brother must have sucked." Like she just rubs it in his face, like just rubbing in, the fact that he has a dead brother. Like he sucked. Like that she's not afraid to do that. That's some cojones, and I love it. I love that they were just unabashedly brazen with the Klingons, and I think it's refreshing. And you don't have to tiptoe around and like, "Ooh, we gotta respect them." No, if they don't deserve respect if they're being assholes. So, love that. But like I said, the heart of the episode is really that connection between Mariner and Maal, and so I really, really love this. It is unfortunate that we also have the Dr. Migliamu storyline, which I found to be extremely disappointing because I saw, in the trailer we were getting this, and I was looking forward to a Migliamu backstory. And now that I've seen this, I think it would have been better if they just went with the cliche where his mom comes in and there's some issue with his mom or his dad or some relative of his, and we get not only some of the cultural stuff but his specific family background. Then you're really getting into like the episode family. Even though that's would be cliche, it would be far more interesting than what they did do. As long as they didn't do the whole like Migliamu is secretly a king thing. They've already done that twice with Phillips and Tindy. So as long as they didn't do that, I would have appreciated more of a family background story. I do find it interesting that their culture is very food centric and that food critics are revered as scholars. That is interesting, but the whole plot was just fucking stupid. Like, it was first of all obvious that they were fake, and they're just way, way too assholey, and Migliamu was way too easy to go along with it. And again, I say this a lot in my Star Trek reviews for episodes I don't like. Bad sitcom trope, and this was an especially bad sitcom trope. And yeah, this was a pretty awful B plot which is unfortunate because the A plot was so good. So taking those things in the balance, it's kind of like episode three, except the A plot is even better and the B plot is even worse. I gave episode three a 7.5, up and that a point. For episode four, my rating is 8.5 out of 10. If the B plot didn't suck so much, we could have gotten our first 9 out of 10 of the season. But as it stands, no 9 out of 10s yet in the season, and that will also hold true in episode 5. So let's go ahead. And this will be my first time talking about episode 5 since I did not do a written review for it. So let's go ahead and get into episode 5. All right, moving on to the final episode of the first half of the season 5, episode 5, entitled Starbase 80. so, uh, I appreciated the Enterprise references. Even though the whole thing with the gel, I saw that a billion times in the trailer. So by the time I saw it here, it was like not fresh and new anymore. I kind of wish they didn't show that in the trailer, honestly. Um, but that whole thing with the gel from Enterprise definitely deserved to be made fun of. I'm surprised it took them 5 seasons to get to that. Boimler even makes a comment of like, "Look at me all T'Pol over here." So I'd like that. I mean, I had seen it a million times in the trailer already, so it was kind of old news at this point. But I still enjoy that they did that. Um, Other Enterprise references. Uh, they have Enterprise uniforms. There's no real reason why they should, but that was cool. um, and I guess that bat, the Perithian bat or whatever that Freeman and Ransom are going after at the end, apparently is like the bat that like Phlox had. um, so yeah, it's a little Enterprise references thrown in that I do uh, find quite enjoyable. Um, Now, the whole thing with Starbase 80, before it was just kind of this running gag, like no one wants to go to Starbase 80, Starbase 80, and the Mariner gets sent there at the end of was it season three? I think that um and there Starbase 80 is just portrayed as like a place where there's just a bunch of morons, like um just I think they were in these like yellow jumpsuits or something, as I recall. They weren't wearing the Enterprise uniforms, but they were depicted as just very dumb people. And it was like, why would there be a starbase like that? That doesn't make sense. Here, they develop it further, and they make it like, well, it's not actually like there's a bunch of morons here. It's just neglected, but we see a commander who really who requested to be there, who really cares about giving people a second chance, and really likes being at Starbase 80 because of that. Um, so that is a good, interesting take on Starbase 80, kind of developing it more than just a simple gag where it's the place nobody wants to go and everybody's stupid or whatever. Like they do further develop it. However, I still have a bit of a hang up with this, in that this station is so neglected that they never upgraded anything, that they don't have replicators, that they um, no one Starfleet never sends them resources, so they still have things from TOS era technology. And why would Starfleet have a starbase like this? Why would they completely neglect a starbase in this manner? It makes no sense. It doesn't go into the whole, I hate to say Roddenberry's vision, but the whole utopia thing. There's a moneyless society. There's no money, so there's no excuse for them to be lacking the resources. There's really no reason other than, yeah, it is kind of a different sort of gag. It's better than the previous gag, but it's still kind of its own gag that this starbase is just completely neglected in a way that I have a hard time buying for Starfleet. Now you can say, well, it's just lower decks. However, let us not forget that lower decks is canon. That what we see in lower decks also exists in TNG, also exists in Star Trek Picard, also exists in all the other Star Trek shows and films. So Starbase 80 exists in Star Trek canon because it's in Lower Decks. So no, I don't buy it. I don't care that it's just a cartoon or whatever. I don't buy that Starfleet would completely neglect a station in this manner. That said, I did enjoy um, the journey that Mariner goes on. I didn't know if I quite understand why Mariner at the beginning of the episode was all cheery and like trying to be more positive. I was trying to go back to the other episodes and think when that happened. So I didn't really quite get that. But um, I do like that she's trying to confront something from her past now, the whole Starbase 80 thing and feeling, she still's got feels for that. Freeman even had to say, "I apologize for that," but she's still holding a little bit of a grudge, still have some feelings for being cast aside and abandoned on Starbase 80, and therefore has a lot of negative associations towards Starbase 80 because of it. So I do like that the commander, I forget her name, that's a good character. She was a very good character. Um, is able to kind of get Mariner out of that. Um, Even though the whole thing with the zombie thing not being from Starbase 80, I think that was predictable. But to me, that's not the point of it. And I've heard people complain too that it was so easily resolved that the doctor dude just like punched the or kicked the beluga whale and knocked the entity out of it. Um, that was too easy. To me, that's not really the point of it. That's not the conflict of the episode in my eyes. The conflict of the episode is Mariner and her story journey and her coming to terms with a Starbase 80 and her feelings of abandonment and being left behind there, and therefore associated having all these negative associations with Starbase 80 and kind of getting past that and realizing Starbase 80 is not that bad of a place. That is more of what the heart of the story is for me. So the zombie thing was just a side thing, just kind of similar to what I said about the nanites in the hotel thing. It's just kind of a means to get to our character journey. Um, I would say this one is even better than that one. Um, but I'm not really worried about it being too easily resolved. That's not the point of the episode for me. So that was fine. That's all well and good. Um, we get some good references. The dudes from the Vengeance Factor, which I'm gonna admit it's been a while since I've seen the Vengeance Factor, so I didn't catch on right away who those people were until I watched other people's videos. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. um, so and then the entity at the end turned out to be the same species as the space ghost from Sub Rosa. I love that Lower Decks does these little things like that. But overall, yeah, decent episode. I have some issues with it. So my rating out of 10 for season 5, episode 5, Starbase 80, is a 7.5. So another 7.5. So this is a lot of, for me, like 6 is slightly below mediocre. 7 is solidly mediocre. 7.5 is maybe slightly ahead of mediocre, a little bit better mediocre. 8 is we're getting into decently good territory. So the fact that I given a 6 and two 7.5s, an 8, and only one 8.5. This goes back to what I said at the beginning of the video, that this has been a very mediocre first half of the season. But I do have hope for the second half. Once we get more into the quantum fissure of it all, that we'll get into some interesting stuff. So that does it for my review for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episodes 1 through 5. Join me at the end of the season where I will review episodes 6 through 10, and then I will give my overall rating for this whole season. I'm not going to give a half season rating, so I will wait till the end, and then I'll give my rating for episodes 1 through 10 as a collective. Thank you so much for joining me. Check out my channel. I'm not doing as much as I used to, but you can check out everything that I got going on. Alyssa Jean's reviews, all my previous Star Trek reviews, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.